Hi, everybody. Yeah, I see that there's still people coming in. It's welcome on this workshop, specifically open for issuing bodies and registry operators. It is very good to see 37 participants so far. Today's participants are very different. Some are TSOs, some are energy regulators, market operators, power exchanges, but we all have one common denominator. We all contribute to the energy transition very actively. All of us are operating a registry. We will be doing so or have been appointed by our governments as issuing body for guarantees of origin or for energy attribute tracking certificates. And this comes with challenges, for instance, how to ensure that each system is reliable, not only on the national level, but also on the European level. And this reliability, obviously, we take that very serious over the past days. From AIB side, we have been very actively cooperating in a workshop with European tax authorities and with Europol to further improve detection and prevention of VAT fraud with those certificates. And one of the other challenges that is laying ahead is energy conversion. And the aim of today is, as you know, to map the challenges that lay ahead of us when we talk about energy conversion. For those who don't know me, I'm Lisbeth Switten, working for the AIB since long and taken over from Phil Moody as Secretary General last year. And within the AIB, though, we have Katrien Verbum working on the sector integration program that we initiated last year. Indeed, AIB has always operated the e-certificate system, as many of you know, that was designed as a certification system for all energy carriers, and many of our members are appointed as issuing bodies for gas certificates. Next slide. And it is in that respect that we are happy to cooperate in this REGATRACE project. So the REGATRACE Renewable Gas Trade Center in Europe is a Horizon 2020 project with 8 work packages. REGATRACE aims to create an efficient, previous slide, please. REGATRACE aims to create an efficient system for issuing and trading GOs, guarantees of origin, for biomethane and renewable gases. And this will obviously strongly contribute to the uptake of the European biomethane market, which is growing rapidly and which has a great potential, as many of us saw during our internal webinar 2 weeks ago. So it is obviously that a stable, reliable and common market for biomethane and other renewable gases in Europe can help achieve the EU targets and decouple its energy systems from fossil fuels. We all know that biomethane and renewable gases can be produced from waste or residual streams or organic material, and that they can be transmitted and stored in existing infrastructures, and that making it possible to combine the European natural gas and electricity grids. And this, a lot of work is done in the REGATRACE project in this respect. The project runs from June 2019 until November 2022. And it received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 framework program for research and innovation under a grant agreement. Next slide. There are 8 work packages in this project, and the intention is to set up a national GO issuing bodies, to integrate GOs from different renewable gas technologies with electric and hydrogen GO systems, but also to perform an integrated assessment on sustainable feedstock mobilization strategies and technology synergies. And we want to provide support for the biomethane market uptake, as I already said. And the results of the REGATRACE project will be transferred beyond the project countries. So AIB is leading a work package within number 4 on the integration of guarantees of origin for multiple energy carriers. And within this work package, we cooperate very good with several stakeholders and issuing bodies, including Isinova, where Stefano Proietti is working, who is the project leader of the REGATRACE project and who is also doing great work in this respect. And our other partners in specifically this work package 4 are the European Biogas Association, SGCS, CIB, DENA, the Renewable Gas Forum, the Belgium Gas TSO Fluxys, RBO, Ambergrid, Nedjaya, DBFZ, Ellering, Ergar, and UPBI. Next slide. In this work package 4, the project has already published a report on guidelines for the verification of cross-sectoral concepts. This report maps verification areas in relation with tracking of energy carrier conversion between electricity, hydrogen, biomethane, bio-LNG and biomethanol along the value chain. Indeed, these energy carrier conversion issues are now really popping up and need further development. And the results of the report that has already been published will be presented in a separate public webinar soon. Within task 4.3, an exercise is now ongoing to map the practical challenges related to energy carrier conversion. And this workshop today with issuing bodies and registry operators aims to synchronize the understanding of the technical challenges we are facing in this respect and to collect some feedback from all of you. So together these form inputs for upcoming reports on harmonized rules for energy conversion by October of this year and for a design study on a coordinated conversion process by April 2022. Next slide. So let's run through the agenda. First of all, Katrien will present the existing framework relating to energy carrier conversion. Then Matthias will compare the AIB, ERGAR and Certified certification schemes. Katrien will try to map the challenges for implementation of energy conversion when trying to manage energy certification systems. And then we will show you 3 case studies from Germany. Jacob Jegal will present from the Netherlands with Remco, and Austria, Harold Preudel from eControl will give us some explanation about that. And then it's time for your input, for sharing your questions, your challenges, your concerns that we can take up further as inputs for the end report. And we will do so in an interactive way. We have been setting up a poll system. Next slide. So the poll system, you should have received a warning already that we're going to use that. Please try it out. We will now launch a first poll to see whether this works. So we want to keep you all involved and collect your views. I hope everybody has been able to log in on a separate screen and, for instance, on your phone. And please try to fill out the VVox poll that is presented here on screen. You can find the instructions again in the app. So it's vvox.app and the ID is projected in the chat. Bram already says that the poll misses one reply, windy from Belgium, and I can really agree to that. It's extremely stormy here today. And snowy in Norway. Oh my goodness. There's still some work to be done, but well, does the poll work? That's the $1 million question. Katrien, over to you. I let you see whether it works and whether we can present already some results.
Yes, I see that the responses are still running in. I give you 10 more seconds to tell you what the weather is like in your country. And then apart from that, you have still time till just before the break. The next poll question will be there to get acquainted with the app. You find the login details in the email that you received earlier this morning. So let's close this poll and see how good we are. Most of us are in a cloudy place, probably including windy and snowy places. But some of us are in a sunny place. That's really nice to see. Luckily, there's nobody who has no idea. So everybody has had the opportunity today to look out the window or be outside for a second and enjoy a bit of outside atmosphere.
Yeah,
but,
that's so thanks, Katrien. It seems that the app is working, that the polling question is working, and looking at the chat, it's good to see that the audience is very involved already. So great to see that. I will give the floor to you. Unfortunately, I can't stay personally because I have to hop back to the Europol workshop, but I wish you all very good and fruitful discussions and a lot of challenges to map so that we can work on solving those in the coming time together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisbeth, for this very constructive introduction. It's my pleasure also to guide you and moderate you through the rest of the webinar today. And it's also my pleasure to see that we are a significant amount of people here together looking at this important topic. It will be a topic that has a big impact on the design of our future certification systems. So it's important that we all talk with each other, also in the time that we don't know yet how to resolve all of the challenges. Especially that is a good time to talk with each other. Two more technical aspects. If you have a technical issue, Fanny Lamont from the European Biogas Association is available for technical issues, so address her in the chat. And you can use the same chat system for questions and comments. We chose to use GoToMeeting because it facilitates more interaction than a webinar software tool. And that's basically what this is intended to in the second half of the webinar, to use a lot more interaction, to speak up yourself, ask your questions, and bring in your comments yourself with your camera and your mic on. If you have a problem with that, just drop your question in the chat, and then we can still handle it from there on. Just what we aim to do is indeed, as Lisbeth said, inform about or get a common understanding of some challenges that we already identified, collect your feedback of the challenges you perceive, and also collect your feedback on potential solutions. That being said, that gives us time to go to the next item and to indeed immediately dive into the content. I will talk a bit about the existing framework, then Matthias Edel from ERGAR will compare or share the main results on the comparison of various schemes. Then we dive again into some identified challenges for now. And it is very important that it may require something from your attention span to stay with it, because there will be quite some content, but it will help you through sharing your insights through the poll questions later on. So after the first case study, after each of the case study, you will have a poll question, and at the end there will be more poll questions, and all the content that will be presented before is kind of informing you and trying to help you form or to see what you know to form an opinion on the questions that we will ask later on. So that existing framework for conversion rules for certificate handling, let's look at that for now, at what we've collected so far. Why actually should we, issuing bodies, registry operators of certificate systems, bother about energy carrier conversion? It's a technical thing. Well, there is a good driver for a generic guarantee of origin system for all energy carriers, and that is in energy carrier conversion. How is that so? Well, look at the physical tracking of gas. It's not very possible. Gas is injected into a network. The molecules are transferred to multiple consumers. And if you want to guarantee to a specific consumer a specific origin without double claiming it, then the guarantee of origin system has proven to do a good job in that aspect. So it needs a guarantee of origin for the gas, the biomethane that is injected into the gas grid, to inform the consumer of its renewable origin of the gas. What if that consumer then transforms that gas into another energy carrier? In this case, he consumes methane from the gas grid into hydrogen, and that hydrogen could be supplied to a hydrogen consumer who also would be interested in consuming renewable hydrogen. And how can he be informed of that? Well, through a cancellation of a guarantee of origin for renewable hydrogen. But that guarantee of origin can only be issued if there is proof of the renewable origin of that hydrogen, which requires the cancellation of the preceding gas guarantee of origin. In CEN, the developments of the draft revision of the EN 16325 standard for guarantees of origin, we've started to call that concept geo-conversion issuance. And here, just showing how this looks very much the same if you convert electricity into hydrogen. Also there, you need the hydrogen geos to be issued for cancelled electricity geos from, in this case, wind. Phil mentions that there may be a sound problem. Is there anybody else having that problem? If not, I just continue.
Works perfectly here.
Great,
so,
thanks. Nice, good. So, and the interaction also works well. Good. So, what else do we have in terms of conversion rules so far? In AIB in 2019, there was done some thinking about that, and it resulted into integrating some rules on conversion into the X rules that say some basic rules. Not yet going into deep detail, but those basic rules have basically been used in the draft revision for the EN 16325 standard, which is the guarantee of origin standard that exists since 2013, but is now being updated. And the main aspect of that update is move from electricity only to a multiple energy carrier geosystem. And there, so let's look at the definition in the draft EN 16325 standard. Energy carrier conversion is just a physical conversion. It's the production of an energy carrier in a production device from one or more inputs that include at least one other energy carrier. And an energy carrier is one for which a GEO is issued. So that's just a physical process. Then you have conversion issuance. And conversion issuance is what we've called the issuance of a guarantee of origin for output resulted from energy carrier conversion, and for which GEOs representing the attributes of the input into that production device have been cancelled. That's the definitions of what we are talking. So it relates with issuance and cancellation as a proof before that issuance. So before we had energy carrier conversion, and this is both in the X rules and in the draft EN 16325 standard, there was just geo issuing as usual. Basically, you can only look at the graphs, you don't need to read all the text. But the issuing as usual is just you have a physical energy input into a production device. The smallest square is a production device, the square around it is the site on which it is. And the energy leaving the site, you can issue geos for it for the same amount of geos as the energy that you've produced. And then that's simply what we've known already as geo issuing. But now with energy carrier conversion issuance, we have also the input could be another energy carrier for which geos are cancelled. And important here is that the amount of cancelled geos, they equal the amount of energy input for which renewable claims want to be made. And the amount of geos that want to be are issued out of the production for the output, they reflect the amount of measured output. So it needs measurement of input and measurement of output to make sure that the conversion losses don't get geos unnecessarily or unjustly. Then the next aspect of the rules in X and the draft standard today, because I understand that we have in our case studies some challenges, are some good reasons to challenge the rules also. So let's look at them how they are today and see whether that's how you will feel about it. But what it does, and making here in the graph a graphical representation of imaginary chaining up, because of course in the book and claim system you don't have the direct physical links. But eventually for a production device 2, you can issue geos for energy carrier C that you have produced. If you cancel geos for energy carrier B that went into the production device, and those geos have been issued for physical energy production in production device 1. And on these geos C, what you have to mention there, you have a lot of data fields on one guarantee of origin, and one of these data fields, the most important one, is the energy source. And the main principle for energy carrier conversion, and that hasn't yet been debated by anybody, is the energy source mentioned on these geos, they have to be the same ones as the energy source mentioned on the cancelled geos. Energy source B is energy source energy source C is energy source B is the energy source of the input energy carrier A. Then the purpose also has to be conveyed. So if if you want to use certificates for disclosure here, that means that they are guarantees of origin, then what has to be cancelled has also to be a proof that can be used for disclosure. They have to be GEOs as well. And then if there is a label on the GEOs of carrier B, it's possible that you can convey that label and onto the GEOs of carrier C if the label operator supports the conversion. That's just transpose the data that we simply transpose, and then another data to transpose, basically to cumulate, and that's a rule we may further discuss, and CertiQ will do that, we've learned. So, but the support data is cumulated along the conversion chain. On a guarantee of origin, there is a data field that relates to the support received for the energy production. Investment support, production support, both or none. And that information was proposed to be cumulated along the chain. So the support on GEOs B was cumulated with the support received for the production in production device 2 and mentioned on the GEOs C. And another data element, carbon footprinting data, it's an optional data field, but of course also that can be carried forward if an adequate methodology describes how to do so. The main amount of, or the biggest amount of data fields, however, they all keep on relating to production device 2. They just say what if production device 2 is an electrolyzer, then the technology is the electrolyzer, the production period, the country where the electrolyzer is positioned, the date operational, so the capacity, all the information, they relate to the energy production of energy carrier C in a production device 2. And so how does that then look on guarantees of origin? Let's make it specific. If you convert biomethane into electricity, like on the first picture earlier today, the production device is the blue box here, and you cancel guarantees of origin for energy gas or hydrocarbon gas. Sen is still discussing how to call the concept, but it's a gas geo that is cancelled, and there are electricity geos issued. So the energy carrier on the input geos, that will reflect the gas or the gaseous aspect of it, and it is an energy. These geos have been issued for agricultural products from anaerobic digestion with the purpose of disclosure and with some support information and a label. The geos that are issued for the electricity, they will convey the yellow marked information from the input geos to the output geos, and the rest they will just relate to the production device. So that is the main reasoning. Of course, there will be a pro rata rule related with the input and output measurement. Then just acknowledging what is happening in CEN and just illustrating briefly, summarizing what the discussion is about, without saying that we will solve the discussion on that field today. But if you produce hydrogen, and in this case from electricity, from solar, in an electrolyzer, you produce, you produce hydrogen, and you can convey that hydrogen to a consumer of hydrogen. So all the same happens here. You convey all the yellow marked data on the output geo, but in CEN there is still a question if the hydrogen is injected into the gas network, how to call the energy carrier, and so whether that then would call hydrogen or energy gas, or how to reflect that exactly. So that discussion is still ongoing. It's just a matter of structuring data, basically, for an issuing body, and it's a quite politically sensitive discussion that interferes with the design of the hydrogen and the gas market. So I assume that we will not solve that aspect here under this very same discussion. And actually, we as issuing bodies and registry operators, we can make abstraction from that discussion to just look already at all the other challenges that relate with energy carrier conversion. This is basically what I'm what I just mentioned. Another important aspect in the draft SENS standard is that the issuing body shall verify the cancelled guarantees of origin of the input energy carrier. That requires a link of the cancelled guarantees of origin to the measurements of the new production. It also requires to acknowledge how issuing body roles are allocated. In some countries, there will be one issuing body for multiple energy carriers. In other countries, there has not. That is not the case. And in that case, it's very important to have a good communication between those issuing bodies. And what is also helpful is to have a generic geosystem for all energy carriers. So with that in the back of our heads, we start thinking about the challenges that lie ahead of us. And I think now is, before diving into the details of the challenges, just in an abstract way, I think it makes really sense to look at the existing certification schemes. There has been a task in REGATRACE, to compare the certification schemes of the Association of Issuing Bodies of the European Registry for Renewable Gas and the Certify project. And the best person to enlighten us of the outcome is Matthias Edel, who has been the lead on that comparison. It was a joy to contribute, and Matthias is also the brand new Secretary General of ERCAR. So I very much welcome Matthias here. Can you?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you, Katrine, for a kind introduction. Yes, the task 4.2 was just finalized a couple of days ago, so the results that I will present to you are brand new, as is my function as Secretary General with the European Renewable Gas Registry. And I'm happy that some of ERGA members are with us today, but I even very happy that we have such a huge audience today and so many experts. That is not often the case, that we have the chance to exchange on such topics. But now, yeah, let's dive into my presentation. Maybe we can move to the next slide. Yeah, task 4.2, the objective was to compare the schemes of AIB, which is the gas and the electricity scheme, ERGA's certificate of origin scheme, and ERGA's RED and B scheme, and Certify's hydrogen scheme. And most of you operate their own issuing body, national database or system, and the European schemes are addition to the national databases and schemes, facilitating the cross-border transfer of certificates of renewable energy carriers. And within the REGATRACE task 4.2, one of the objectives was to compare the schemes and provide information on schemes procedures and rules to verify the information that is finally recorded in the certificates. And if we go to the next slide, maybe a few words about the European framework, because that's very important to understand the comparison and to understand a little bit the different schemes. The core regulation is the Renewable Energy Directive, as it is defining sustainability criteria. It is defining how to document sustainability criteria, and it provides requirements for the disclosure of renewable and low energy carbon carriers. And if we have a look at the European framework, we can see there are many different elements that have to fit together in order to document compliance with the Renewable Energy Directive. And it depends on the purpose and the energy source of the gaseous energy carriers, which elements must be considered or even can be considered, because there is some freedom. as well. And for some elements, we are waiting delegated acts. That means some elements such as the renewable fuels of non-biological origin, according to the RED, are not available yet, and that means for the moment it's not. These energy carriers are not defined at the moment. And if we move to the next slide, within the task 4.2, we formed 3 categories of types of certificates. According to the RED 2, first is the guarantees of origin, I think well known to each of you. The second category, which is used for the comparison of the schemes, is proof of sustainability in combination with the mass balancing systems. That means the RED 2 requires that sustainability criteria has to be documented with mass balancing systems. That means both elements always have to be put together if we talk about the Renewable Energy Directive and how to comply with the Renewable Energy Directive. And the third category are other types of certificates for other purposes. Some national issuing bodies might issue certificates that do not fulfill the criteria of guarantees of origin or proofs of sustainability, but fulfill national requirements. So this is the third category, but for the following comparison, I will not touch this third category. And then we can move to guarantees of origin. On the right hand, you can see a table where the different European schemes are described, and the different energy carriers which are in the scope of the European schemes. And from the comparison, we can say that all schemes cover guarantees of origin, except the ERGA RED MB scheme, which is dedicated to mass balancing. So that's very obvious that it does not cover GOs. However, the AIB gas and electricity schemes cover all types of energy carriers. The Certify covers hydrogen, and the ERGA COO scheme covers all types of renewable gases. From that, we can draw the conclusion that in theory, with the existing European schemes and their issuing bodies, national databases, all kinds of directions of energy carrier conversion can be covered. That's one of the first findings. That means electricity to gas, vice versa, and hydrogen to hydrocarbon gas, and the other way around can be covered by the existing European schemes and their issuing bodies. And we can say that energy conversion can be assessed within the schemes. That means, for example, AIB electricity to gas, but it also can be assessed between schemes. For example, ERGA gas to AIB electricity, or Certify hydrogen to AIB electricity, or Certify hydrogen to ERGA hydrocarbon gas, for example. And then if you move to the next slide, please. We did a similar comparison for proofs of sustainability. And we can say that all schemes have a very generic setup, which would allow them to extend to cover renewable fuels of non-biological origin and recycled carbon gas fuels according to the Renewable Energy Directive. That means covering the sustainability criteria in this respect. But at the moment, due to the outstanding delegated acts, the schemes cannot provide such a documentation as the framework is not finalized in this respect. So for the recommendation out of task 4.2 is to touch the energy conversion with the GO first, and when energy conversion rules and processes are well elaborated and the European framework is finalized or more concrete than it is today, then the rules from the GOs can be adapted to sustainability and energy carriers that have to provide sustainability requirements. So if we now move to the last slide, a very crucial, it's very crucial to understand how the issuing bodies, how the scheme verify the data that are on the certificates, and in order to assess and compare the different schemes, we applied a 4-level approach. It's an approach which was developed in the REGATRACE Deliverable 2.1, and it's level 1 is about verification of the installation or the production device. Level 2 is how the volume of energy output is measured and verified. That means the gas or electricity output. Level 3 is how the characteristics, the substrates or energy input to the installation is verified. And level 4 is about transfer specific data, how this data is verified and checked. So, and from the comparison, we can say on level 1 that it is very common that a third-party audit is required to verify plant and installation specific data. So there's no much difference between the schemes. I think that's state of the art. On level 2, on the volume of energy output, that means gas and electricity, meter readings are really state of the art to demonstrate the produced volume of gas or electricity. But sometimes there's a difference if an independent verification of meter readings is required, if an independent third-party audit is required. And I think that's very important. If we talk about energy conversion, there can be some differences can emerge whether the verification has to take place before GOs are issued, or if only an ex post verification is possible. That's something that is something we have to take care of if we talk about energy conversion. And on the level 3, that means the substrate input, energy input to the installation, and some other characteristics related to the energy carrier. We see different approaches for the verification. For example, Airgun certified requires third-party audit for all this kind of information. Third-party audit disregard. AIB leaves this a bit more to the discretion of the national issuing bodies, how they verify this kind of information. And on level 4, we can say that the transfer-specific data is verified and checked. However, the means how this data is verified is different between the 3 schemes. And I think we are looking at the time. I won't go into the details on the transfer-specific data now. So that was my final slide, and I'm happy to answer your questions. And just want one final information. The report was submitted to the European Commission, and we expect that we can publish it on the REGATRACE website soon. So then you will have the chance to read more about the comparison of the 3 different schemes.
Thank you very much, Matthias. Oh, my mouse was very enthusiastic. Any immediate questions? Questions for understanding, because reflections we do later on. Of course, it's a recommended read, that report. It has quite some pages, and of course, apart from that, talking with each other is probably the best way to learn about the differences and the similarities in practice with the different schemes. And so that's fantastic that we are doing that today. I see a question that is good for you, I think, to answer, Matthias. Is it possible to convert GOs issued according to mass balancing into GOs issued according to book and claim, and vice versa?
Okay, that's a good question. I think it depends on the scheme rules that you rely on. But I mean, for GOs, I would say very likely that it is possible. For book and claim, it's always important that the mass, you cannot switch between from book and claim to mass balancing, because mass balancing has to be fulfilled during the complete chain of custody. That means once you decide to leave the path of mass balancing, you cannot go back anymore, because the chain of custody is broken, interrupted, and the mass balancing criteria is no more fulfilled. So that's there's no way back. But for GOs, I think I guess it's only a guess. It does not hurt if for part of the chain of custody mass balancing requirements are fulfilled. I think that's I never heard that it would be violate the issuance of GOs.
Yeah, I also understand that, of course, it depends on what you understand with mass balancing, and that the rules of the European directive are still further fine-tuned in the delegated acts that Matthias also mentioned. So probably it will depend of the content of those delegated acts on how far book and claim GOs would be acceptable for example, hydrogen recognition. But that is yet to be seen. Okay, and yeah, I think with that, maybe it's good to look a bit deeper into the challenges, because I think Pamela's question already illustrates that a lot will depend on interpretation. So I want to take you a bit into the challenges that we've identified so far. Of course, there are more challenges, but I think these are the most important ones to find a common understanding on. And let's look at them and see what you think about them. Because the reason why we want to, why we are so happy that you also spend your afternoon with us looking at the challenges, is that it allows us to clearly define what we will be working on and to serve the needs of you all better. We have in this project a bit of time to look into possible solutions. So to first know whether these solutions at all matter, we need to have some clarity on whether you experience these challenges indeed, and how you would like to deal with them. So what we already discussed in the subgroup that dedicates its time to task 4.3 in REGATRACE, being DENA, IGCS, ERGAR, AIB, and European Biogas Association, is that we will focus on the conversion of guarantees of origin the legal framework for proofs of sustainability is still evolving, and so it's first of all not very possible to say much of meaning there. But further, any basic rules that we have established for GO conversion may be a basis later for POS conversion. So let's first look at the basis. And we will also look at the concept of energy carrier conversion, not only in the direction of converting an energy carrier to renewable gas, but in all directions. Electricity, hydrogen, and renewable gases, they can all be converted into each other. So we will look in this study into all these directions. Then we've identified 4 main processes that may be challenging or that require some alignment. And if we look at one conversion process, biomethane being converted into electricity through biomethane transported over the gas network, gas is put into a gas engine and electricity is produced with that. The gas origin is being proven with the cancellation of guarantees of origin that are cancelled, and the new electricity produced receives new electricity GOs that can be marketed, that can be traded on the market. So we have an input measurement, we have an output measurement, and what is then so challenging? First of all, as an issuing body, you will be confronted with the question, we receive cancelled GOs, or we have cancelled GOs. What types of GOs will we accept in our system, in our registry? What works for us? What quality criteria would we have? That's the first question, the quality check of these GOs. So we'll have a next slide about that soon. The second challenge is the cancellation, ensuring that these GOs are actually cancelled preceding GO conversion issuance. It's nice in theory, it still works when we have 5 devices and we do everything monthly, but what if the amount becomes bigger? Matching of the cancelled GOs with input measurement values requires to install some checks and some process for doing so. The data where the input measurement is available, the registry where the input measurement is collected, is possibly something else than the registry where the GOs are cancelled. So it needs maybe some interfacing, some communication, some system of matching. And the fourth challenge is the actual issuing of these new GOs for the new energy carrier, which require to copy some data of these cancelled guarantees of origin in a pro rata way, because you have another amount of input than output, and the data has to be transposed to the newly issued GOs. So let's dedicate one slide to each of these challenges. With the conversion GO quality check, that will be a delicate exercise to be made. And actually each issuing body has the authority to make its own decisions. Just let's see whether we can work on a common framework, whether it's possible to work on something harmonized.
Katrin, we have a question in the chat, which is probably good to answer. So if you could clarify when we use GO and when that we refer to the red.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, GO, indeed, we mean the Article 19 GOs from the Renewable Energy Directive. That's what we mean when we talk about guarantees of origin. If we talk about proofs of sustainability, indeed, then we refer more to the articles at the end of the directive, Article 29, 30, even from 25 onwards. But from now on, the rest of the challenges that we talk about are all relating to the Article 19 guarantees of origin. And as we just said, proofs of sustainability challenges, they are only just a little bit bigger, so we can work from that basis onwards and see what we can use for the proofs of sustainability later.
I tried to emphasize that the Renewable Energy Directive requires that sustainability criteria are documented with a mass balancing system. That means it is not enough only to attach proof of sustainability to a certificate. In order to comply with the Renewable Energy Directive, it is it is required that a mass balancing system must be applied. And what is the difference between proof of sustainability and label? I think, yeah, label can be many different additional information to the installation, or even I know from one of the labels it includes information about the operator of the installation and the energy provider. So the label can be much more than only sustainability of the installation and the energy carrier.
Yeah, it is possible to link a certificate with sustainability information. That's also what Certify will do, to build a bridge between a sustainability certificate or supply certificate with the guarantee of origin system. And in the EX-gas scheme, there's also something like a bridge. Also, Edgar's setup of the different schemes is kind of linking several aspects. Okay. Yeah, Antti, you're right. Heating and cooling are relevant to look at in this workshop as well. At least the rules that we work on, they will also apply for heating and cooling. Definitely, it's also an energy carrier nominated by RED 2. Under REGATRACE, we mainly work with the renewable gases, and the task define more electricity and hydrogen correlation with renewable gases, but of course it will also apply for heating and cooling, as will be illustrated by CertiQ later. Rolf has a very smart question. Let's discuss that later on in the reflections. Today we have different schemes, so with what there is today, we have to look at the question: do we keep on working with the different schemes, as Rolf indeed indicates in the chat? But as long as that is the case, we have to see if every GO is compliant with a certain set of quality criteria. Is the GO you cancel in relation with what you have to issue in your registry as issued under the same scheme? Then it's likely to be easier for you to recognize it. If it's not, then you may have to go into an assessment of the received GO, and if that has already been taking place, then it's also easier to continue. But if there are no criteria for recognition yet, we may have to go there. So that's one of the questions that we are facing. Should we establish criteria for recognition? Should we go into that area? Second process, the second challenge is the process of cancellation of guarantees of origin preceding GO issuance, making sure that the GO is cancelled. If you are an issuing body of only a single energy carrier, it is different. The world may be different for you than if you're an issuing body for multiple energy carriers. It seems, so here are 4 options written on the screen. It seems that if you're an issuing body for multiple energy carriers, it's more self-evident to at least to ensure that you import the GO of the other energy carrier in your own registry, and you cancel it there, and you issue new GOs for it. A question is for the other for a single energy carrier issuing body, whether that is also the way forward. And it might be really a good solution, but there are also other options that we may have to consider. The simplest option in terms of initial costs is examen cancellations on a PDF. What is an examen cancellation? It is the cancellation of a guarantee of origin for use in another domain than where the GO is cancelled. So and that cancellation is confirmed by a certificate on paper, on a PDF, where the cancelling issuing body guarantees that unique guarantee of origin has been cancelled. There is the pro is that has low cost when you have low volume. It has a high manual workload when you have a high volume, but the essential reason why in AIB there is usually not so much appetite for going into examen cancellations on PDF for accepting them is double counting risk. A PDF is easily copied, somebody can create one, so it's very unresistant to fraud. The second possible solution is, let's work with that very same examine cancellation statement, but instead of a PDF, develop an electronic transfer protocol between registries. It is more reliable than an examine cancellation on a PDF. It has more flexibility for different registry types, but it requires to invest in an additional transfer protocol and an implementation of a protocol for incoming messages. So you have to deal with that as well. Then the cancellation in the issuing registry. So if you are a single energy carrier issuing body, and still being able to import geos of another energy carrier into your registry will allow to build automated processes for handling with conversion. The contra argument is indeed also there is an investment for setting up the automation, but also in the preceding option you would have such an investment. It requires just to at least implement the data fields in the issuing registry of the other energy carrier. And then another solution that has been brought forward mainly by IT people is the central cancellation. You don't need to adopt the registration structure in single energy carrier registries, electricity only or gas only or heating and cooling or hydrogen only. But you have also an investment, a joint investment in a central cancellation database and a local investment in the interface with such central cancellation database. So that's one of the processes that we'll have to form an opinion about as well. Looking then at that matching the cancelled geos with the input measurement value. Don't get depressed, we'll keep on talking all about overcoming the challenges, but these are challenges that we are facing. Matching geos with input measurement values, basically all issuing bodies are very used with measuring input and outputs, especially measuring output for which you issue geos, but also in case of biomass, the input streams are usually measured and documented in clear processes. But now the question is the correct amount of geos cancelled compared to the issuance request? And that requires simply a process. Then there are two main options for checking this. And one is ex ante, the other is ex post. Matthias also hinted already to such checks possibly varying between either national implementations or pan-European schemes. But especially when we go to this matching of cancelled geos, this may be a low-cost solution to do an ex post check, audit that once per year and trust the producer who has in the meantime said that he has cancelled the correct amount of geos against the meter readings, and he will be audited just once per so many time. The most correct and secure way is, of course, to do that check ex ante. Issue only these geos after the input measurements have been checked against the amount of cancelled geos and ensure that that check has taken place. If you don't have an automated process for this check, it may delay a little bit the issuance time and require some staffing cost. And then the fourth, so the ex ante check is of course easier in a single issuing body. The ex post check, it may be just tricky also when there are several issuing bodies. You have to be sure that eventually that cancellation has taken place. It will have some liability questions as well. And then the fourth check basically goes on transmitting the data fields of the cancelled geos to the new to be issued geos. So so far we determined those to be the energy source, the purpose, the label, the ICS, Independent Criteria Scheme, support information, and potentially also carbon footprint information. That are the high-level rules. They sound very nice, but how to do that in practice will also be a challenge. We can do that either manually or in an automated way. If we go in an automated way, the same questions as in process 2, they pop up again. So if you go in an automated way, the issuing body will either have to import geos of other energy carriers or import electronic cancellation statements. or yeah, from either a central system or the exporting registry. If you do it manually, you can do it with the PDFs, with all the reflections that relate to the reliability of a PDF cancellation statement. So, in summary, these 4 challenges, how do we aim to treat them, or what is a potential way forward of treating them? So on the conversion geo quality check, what we can do is develop quality criteria and a verification process. But we want to test, of course, with you what you think about doing so. Every scheme has to assess what it would need as its quality criteria. It's likely that every national issuing body or every geo system operator has to make its own reflections, and if possible, to come to some rules at the pan-European level. Even on a voluntary basis, it may be helpful to have some recommendations. And what we could do for that is do a questionnaire with you all on more detail for where to go. Then on the second process, geo cancellation preceding conversion issuance, what we can do there is describing various options and evaluate them for how to communicate between registries. These options that we described in the previous slide. If you think of other options, they are of course also very welcome. And of course also your reflections on the feasibility of each of them. The matching of the cancelled geos with input measurement checks, we can also do that in relation with describing and evaluating practical options, the ex ante, the ex post option, and then automated data input for new geo issuance, copying data of the old geos. Well, automated or manual, how to deal with it. It comes very much down to the same IT design questions that relate with with process 2, and that is why we propose to handle challenge 1 and 3 in the first report that we will work on by October on the harmonized conversion rules, and process 2 and 4 in the design study on a harmonized conversion process that we will work on by April next year. Of course, the sooner we are ready, the better, because you all face design decisions as soon as possible. And here again, this slide lists a bit the main work areas. First of all, evaluating the existing conversion rules for guarantees of origin, and today we will already make a good start of that. Then the reliable practices, so how to make efficient and reliable practical implementation of the conversion geos, and dive into these 4 challenges if there is time and if it works well in relation to when the European legislative framework clarifies itself. We may move into certificates for other purposes. And here, this slide basically shows what could be in that first report in September, the overview of the existing conversion rules, the mapping of the challenges, and basically the challenges 1 and 3. And then the design study on the technical requirements can go deeper into challenges 2 and 4 and evaluating the different options. As a way forward, so what we first wanted to do is just put everything on the table, not making any decisions. We would very much appreciate some feedback from you, some indicative polls today. They will not have your name on it, it just gives us a bit of feeling. We strongly consider to send you a questionnaire in the weeks to come with more detailed questions, and we hope to take away some learnings today that orient our questions in a smart way. And then what you may expect of us is a report in October and one in April next year with what we've been mentioning. So that is basically the story on the challenges that I've identified, or that we as a group have looked at in REGATRACE task 4.3 so far. I'm looking a bit at the chat. But I actually want to give the floor to anybody who feels that there is a question that is good to ask right now, or a comment that is good to make right now. If your comment is diving into more deeper reflection, I welcome that a bit later in the session here around 3:30 to have a bit deeper reflection together. So if you have a question, just unmute yourself. If not, then I am grateful that there's activity in the chat box, and I think it makes really good sense to be very interactive with each other. That brings us to the next presentation. Harald Preuderl, the Director for Renewables and Energy Efficiency in the Austrian regulator, will present the case study of Austria, what in Austria has been already considered in terms of conversion. I see. Harald, yeah.
Yep.
Hello, Harald.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me and you can see me, and we can have a quick view on the Austrian system and how we try to convert geos in our database. Before we start, I'd like to give you a quick overview about our role in Austria in the field of guarantees of origin and disclosure. May I ask you to switch to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as I was already introduced, I'm representing the NRA of Austria. We are the regulator for electricity and gas, and we are also the issuing body for guarantees of origin for electricity and gas, and possibly in the future also for heating and cooling. This might be a new activity in this portfolio, but we are still waiting for a new Renewable Act in Austria, where there should be more clarification about the future role of heating and cooling and how the RED II is transformed in the Austrian Act in this case. But we are not only the issuing body for GOs, we are also the competent body for disclosure, and we are doing this disclosure for electricity and for gas. We have 15 plus years experience in GOs and disclosure, so we are running our database and we are running our system for a very long time already. In the case of electricity, in our database, we have more than 150,000 power plants registered, from the very small photovoltaic unit up to the large hydropower plants along the river of Danube. Since 2014, 2015, we have 100% disclosure of all electricity suppliers which are active on the Austrian market. So all these electricity suppliers have to do the labeling for all of the energy that is sold to the final customers. And we are always active in improving the system and trying to adapt things and try to react to the demand from the market. And as I said, we're waiting for a new Renewable Act, and in this Renewable Act we will have additional features for the disclosure system, additional features, and we hope that we can improve the system and make the system more reliable. And one of the major points that hopefully will be introduced in the future is that the energy suppliers have to indicate whether the energy and the GOs are combinedly traded. So this is would be a very new issue that has to be implemented, and that has to be also implemented by the electricity suppliers. In case of gas, we are active, or we launched or intensified our activities in 2017, 2018, where we started to implement the legal and technical and organizational setup for the generation of GEOs and for the disclosure. In the opposite situation to electricity, for gas, the situation is that the issuing of GEOs and the disclosure statement of the gas supplies is still done on a voluntary base, so this is not an obligation so far. Also in this case, we are waiting for the new Renewables Act in order to switch to an obligatory system. In case of heating and cooling, as I said, maybe in the future we will also generate GEOs for these purposes, but it will be more, let's say, a statistical issue and more just a quality check. What kind of primary energy sources are used for the production of heating and cooling, and there will be no trading for GEOs, and also there will be no disclosure system. So this is only will be a first step and not comparable to electricity and gas. So this is the introduction how we are involved in the whole GEO and disclosure system. And the main question of the workshop is, of course, how we are doing this conversion of different GEOs and different energy carriers. And may I ask you to jump to the next slide? Yeah. We have also some experience with conversion of GEOs, but it's in this case, what we have done so far, it was not a real energy conversion from one energy source to another. So the thing that we have done in the past was a conversion of GEOs in our system for pump storage power plants. So the background was in the past that, as you probably know, we in Austria have a very high installed capacity of pump storage, around 4 terawatt, and there was a lot of criticism concerning the use of the pump storage systems, and it was intended that these pump storage systems are used to transform quote-unquote dirty electricity from coal and nuclear power plants into clean hydro power. So there was a strong demand by the market, especially also by NGOs and environmental organizations and so on, to have a more clear and reliable and transparent system, so that pump storage power plants cannot be used as we called it a greenwashing machine. So therefore we introduced a system where we, as I said, didn't convert the energy sources, but we converted somehow the GEOs in the system. I have a picture on the next slide how we did this system, or how we implemented the system. Yes, thank you very much. So basically the case was that the pump that was used to pump the water up the mountain into the reservoir was treated as a final customer, and those suppliers that delivered electricity to this final customer, to the pump, they have to make a specific disclosure statement for this specific customer. But the GEOs that were used for this pump were not cancelled in the system. It was transferred to a specific account, and from this account, these GEOs were stored, or are still stored. The system is still in place, of course. And what you can see here on this picture is that when the pump was used, the water was pumped up the mountain to the reservoir, and the GEOs were transferred to this account, and the GEOs were reduced by 25% due to transformation losses. And in this reservoir, we also have a natural inflow of water. So what we have in this whole process, of course, a production of electricity again. So the water was released, electricity was is produced, and also the GOs that were stored on the specific account were released. But in a special process, so the principle is first in, first out, and it always must be in the same proportion of the used energy sources or used GOs. So in this case, we guarantee if the pump or if the GOs that were used for the pump came from coal and, for example, nuclear power, or nuclear power is not a good example because it was never used, let's say from coal and gas, then if water is released and the electricity is produced, then also the GOs for coal and gas has to be released first. And it's not possible to use GOs from renewables first, or to wait until the GOs for gas and coal expired and then to use GOs from renewables. You always have to use the same technology in the case of GOs expire. So if you have expired coal GOs on your account, then you have to buy new coal GOs, and this can be used for the production of the electricity from the pump storage. What is also very important, of course, you have still a share of GOs from hydro due to the natural inflow. So this is also very important. So but the most important thing is what we converted in our database were the GOs that were used for the disclosure statement to a specific account, and this account or the GOs on this account finally were used to generate new GOs for the electricity that was produced in the pump storage. And this system was rather successful over the last couple of years, so everybody was pretty happy with this system. Even the NGOs I mentioned earlier and the environmental organizations approved this system. And with the generation of GOs for hydrogen and other products in the future, we will use a similar system that was successful in the past for the pump storage. So maybe we can switch to the next slide, and it's already my last slide. So due to the experience we made with the pump storage system, we let's say we do a similar technical implementation in our database for power to gas hydrogen transformation. So that means what goes into the transformation process. Again, we have the GOs that goes into the transformation. These GOs have specific information about the origin, about the production, about the technology. On the other side of the transformation, we have different kind of gas, whether it's blue, green, or whatever it is called, and we produce new GOs for this gas, but the information on these guarantees of origin are determined by the information from the electricity GOs, which represented the primary energy in the transformation process. So what we have at the end are new gas GOs with the information about the primary energy source, about the primary engines, the status of the supporting level, and the CO2 factor or the environmental impact. And all these quality parameters reflect the electricity that was used for the transformation process. And what is very important also, I think, GOs for gas have a new issuing timestamp and are valid according to the RED II requirements. So in this case, we have new GOs with a new timestamp, and they are valid for 12 months, I guess. And this system that we implemented, or we are right in the process of the technical implementations, the legal base for this process is in the Gas Act, and there's a secondary legislation. And we are also waiting again for the Green Energy Act to have some more clarification and some more details about the future implementation of the system. But this will be the system that we will use for our way how we generate the GOs for the hydrogen systems. And there are also a couple of problems that have to be solved, and of course some discussions that we have with stakeholders, with market participants, and these problems are summarized on my last slide. So may I ask you to switch the slide? Yes, thank you very much. One problem that we have so far, and that is not finally solved, is that GOs, whether we talk about electricity or we talk about gas, are represented energy from the public grid. Well, especially when we talk about power to gas, hydrogen, and so on, we often have industrial sites that are doing all the transformation process. So sometimes the input, but also the use of the produced gas directly on the site of the plant, and this energy never goes into the public grid. So we have to find a solution how we can use guarantees of origin also for these purposes, for the specific industrial sites that are often involved in large hydrogen projects, and they are the main driver of these hydrogen projects. So we also have to find a way that they can prove their process and how they can use their guarantees of origin for purposes, but we have to define for which kind of purposes they can use them. The calculation of the transformation losses is a major discussion. So the transformation losses in the power to gas processes, and how these transformation losses are also transformed in the GOs. And one major aspect, of course, is also the transformation of the environmental impact from the electricity GOs to the gas GOs. So then we have CO2 on the electricity GOs. We have environmental impact. We have a factor for the CO2 emissions. But the question is, how can we transform this factor to the gas GOs? So what kind of information can be easily transformed from electricity to gas, and what is which factors have to take into account to calculate the right environmental impacts? Yeah, these are this is a short overview about our system, and I hope I had the chance to give you an impression how we are dealing with this energy conversion, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Harald, for this very comprehensive overview of the situation in Austria. It's really interesting. I see actually 4 direct questions that are worth now, and I think we can group them 2 by 2. One is related to the storage and transformation losses, both on electricity and gas production. So how do you take into account evaporation of water for electricity storage? Yeah, the other question is, are the transformation losses calculated based on theoretical efficiency of the technology, or rather measured?
Sorry, if I only understood the second question. So there is for the losses, according losses, there is a specific value in the law. So if the operators do not have specific figures for their systems, then they can use the general value from the law. But if they want to use their specific factors, then they can update their data in the database with a technical expertise, and then they can update the general factor by their individual. So there is both possible. And
the other question was electricity. If the water is evaporated, how do you take that into account? So if you pump up water uphill, that water evaporates. Is there any system that accounts for that in relation with the natural water inflow?
Yes, as this is always also an individual information in the database by the operators, and they update the information each year with a technical expertise. If I understood you right. So unfortunately, I cannot hear you very good, but I guess I got the point.
I think we will mainly focus indeed at the transformation between the various energy carriers anyway. There are two questions to the storage concept. Bram wonders, he says that I don't really understand the need to store guarantees of origin if they have a lifetime of 12 months anyway, given that you're transforming from electricity to electricity. So he's wondering about the case for storing the geo during physical storage.
The point is that it depends, let's say, when how the pump storage is operated. What is the production plan by the operator? So it's not the electricity is not produced all the time. So sometimes it's water is pumped up, and then there are days, or maybe sometimes weeks, where nothing is produced. So therefore, the time between the use of the pump and the production of the energy and the release of the GOs is often different. And okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
can of course jump in himself, but I think also I assume this first in first out system also kind of reflects a bit the origin of all storage, and so I see there's kind of this is moving closer towards a mass balancing system than the pure only book and claim, I assume.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have some technical. I only understand some parts of your words, unfortunately. But as far as I understood, Werner, you got the point. That's exactly it.
I think it is highly time to start a first polling question, and right after that we have the time to go into our break. So the question. So if you please, I hope you still have open your app. Otherwise, you please surf to Vivox.app with the ID that's here on the upper right corner of your screen. You can easily log in, and then this poll question should appear. And here is just the first evaluation of the existing rules for conversion. Should after conversion issuance of GOs, the expiry date be reset? So if GOs for a new energy carrier are issued, should they also receive a new expiry date. So should they have a new issuance date in relation with the production of the new energy carrier? Then you answer yes. That means they have, again, a new lifetime of 12 months. And if you feel they should retain the original issuance date of the cancelled GO or of the original GO of the original energy carrier, then you answer no. Of course, you're free to have no opinion yet. So for 30 people are in the polling tool. That is not yet everybody. So let's give this 20 more seconds and then we'll close the poll. Five, four, three, two, one, and then let's see. So that is an interesting overview. 63% of the 27 voters says yes, the conversion issuance expiry date should be reset, though almost 15% says no, there is a reason for keeping the date of the original GO's expiry dates, and 22% hasn't formed its opinion yet. So the next question is regarding the current rules for conversion issuance. Do you agree that a GO of the energy carrier is to be cancelled and a new GO is to be issued? So 29 people are still in the voting tool. 18 have voted so far. And let's give it 5 more seconds to vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and close the poll. And yes, so the big majority agrees with this, although a few people don't. So always welcome to comment in the chat. But now, indeed, looking at the time, we deserve our break, a 10-minute break. Let's say, yeah, let's try to have it a very short break. Let's reconvene indeed at 1:45, so that we have time enough for the other presentations. So see you very soon again, and wish you a nice break. Hello again, everybody. I welcome you back after the break. I hope you had a nice short break. We have some more case studies ahead of us, 2 more basically, one of Germany, one of the Netherlands, and after that we will go deeper into polling and a bit more discussion. So I welcome Jakob Jegel from DENA, an expert on biomethane certificates, to enlighten us about the experiences in Germany, especially with the power to gas administration. I'll let you operate your slides.
Only you can, if it's possible, you can go on with the slides.
Okay, then I.
Sorry.
I don't know. Yeah, just a second. So here you are.
Okay, thank you. 1 second. Yeah, hello and good afternoon together. Thanks for your short introduction and the invitation to this workshop. My name is Jakob Jegel. I'm working for the German Energy Agency since, I think, 3 years. And here in the team, together with Katarina Seiler and Milenko Matasic, who you already know from the REGATRACE project. Among others, I'm responsible for the operation and further development of the DENA biogas register, and therefore I'm going to give you a short introduction to the challenge of verification of power-to-gas plants in our system as a short insight into the practice. So let's go. To begin with, very briefly, what is the biogas register? Since over 10 years, we are operating this platform for standardized and simple documentation of biomethane, first of all, and renewable gases, quantities and qualities feeding into the gas network. And our platform is an auxiliary instrument for legal documentation requirements in the electricity, heat, and emission trading sectors. Last year, more than 200 plants have booked quantities in our system. And to get the focus on our today's topic, conversion, we have 3 power-to-gas plants with an annual production of 3 gigawatt-hours registered in our system. That means at the present, however, there are only test and pilot plants that are registered with us. However, we were given the opportunity to establish the verification of power-to-gas plants in our system. So let's have a look on the next slide. This graph shows you the part of the mass balance for power-to-gas that is covered by our system, the biogas register. On the far left is the generation and transport of electricity in a direct or indirect way to the power-to-gas plant, which happens before our system. The power-to-gas plant itself is registered with us in the system. So here's also the point where the electricity, GO, if there is one, is converted. And from here, via the feed into the gas grid to the exit point, the mass balance verification can take place via our system. On the next slide, I will go back a step again. We as a registry only look at the regulatory framework. So what is currently relevant for using biogas register for feed-in power-to-gas in Germany? First, the German Renewable Energy Sources Act. This addresses the generation of storage gas. This means temporary storage in the gas network before the electricity grid. So a direct connection is always required. That means storage gas therefore never involves electricity supply from the public grid. So electricity GOs cannot be used here. However, I did not leave it unmentioned here because we have developed numerous criteria from it, which I will come to in a moment, and which can easily be extended to green hydrogen, which was included as a term in the German Renewable Energy Sources Act 2021. And for the control electricity used, electricity GOs can also be used for the storage gas. Well, it is done at the moment in our system that the control electricity there, you can use the electricity GOs. And then the second, there's the possibility of generating hydrogen with electricity GOs and then using that in the direction of the Energy Industry Act, Energiewirtschaftsgesetz, and all the corresponding regulations. The gas fed into the grid is defined as biogas if more than 80% renewable energy is used. This means that that extended balancing compensation is possible here and avoided grid costs are paid for. Or in short, here electricity GOs are sufficient for that. So on the next slide, I wanted to show you how the verification of biogas register works. It is based on our catalog of criteria, and from the legal framework in the previous slide, among others, we have developed the following criteria for the injection of hydrogen or synthetic methane from power to gas plants. I don't want to go through all of them here. They are freely available. You can find them on our website. But for example, we have criterion 6, the proof of the actual injection into the natural gas grid, and or that the gas was produced exclusively from renewable energy electricity in criterion 44. All the criteria I mentioned before for the storage gas in criteria 45. On the next slide, I just want to have a brief look at how these criteria are confirmed in our system. And as Matthias already mentioned, it's also in our system so that every audit, whether it's a planned or a batch audit, must always be confirmed by a third-party auditor. And this brings me already to the most important point for today. On the next slide, it is the step of how the information contained in electricity GO is transferred into our system. Finally, the energy carrier conversion. The electricity GO, along with other documents and information the auditor has to check, is the basis for the auditor to verify the criteria to be met. The corresponding attributes themselves do not have to be included in the audit report by itself. So the audit report in turn is the basis for the verification of the criteria in the biogas register and can access there. That means at the moment, no information from the original GO is transferred to the biogas register on conversion. And it means that the auditor confirms that the electricity GO presented to him and the commissioned had the relevant qualities and are present in sufficient quantity, and thus the relevant criteria are met. So that was the way I want to show you the challenges on the next slide. The challenges of GO issuance for power to gas plants we see in our system, but to be honest, I think Katrina already mentioned them in her presentation. But more maybe, yeah, as you can see, we already do these steps, and so these are the topics we see for this GO insurance. At the moment, there's no information from the original GO transferred into our register. So it would be one short idea to at least upload the original GO or a database extension for our system. It's just always the point of our system. And then we are still seeing the double counting risk as a problem, because at the moment just the auditor gets the GOs provided, or the PODs of the GOs, and maybe there's a possibility to install option for the communication between the registries, as we have already seen. And there's one challenge for us, and how then, if there's some communication system between this, how can the GOs still be able to be provided to the interposed auditor, for example. Yes, that was a short insight in our biogas register, how we are doing the power-to-gas verification at the moment. As I said in the beginning, it's just a very few power plants in a test stage, but yeah, we got a lot of criteria at the moment. We can go on with this, and we are very interested in how this will go on in this workshop and later. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jakob. Very interesting indeed to see the situation in Germany. And indeed, all this was established, I assume, before the RED II was established. So this harmonization of practices is indeed yet to start. And it's interesting to learn how you deal with the auditing of the origin. I have an immediate first question on this power-to-gas plants. So there is no information of the original GEOs taken over. I wonder, do you take anything of, not even the energy source? So there are GEOs issued for the renewable hydrogen produced, and they are claimed to be renewable, or do they have a bit more detail on the origin of that hydrogen?
From my point of view, the auditor just checks or gives us the information or put it into the system that this criteria, if you go to the slide, maybe it was criteria 44, if there's a renewable energy source of 100%, then this criteria is positively checked. Or for the criteria 47, it's something like more than 80%. But there's this information about the energy source is not in our system stored at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And also interesting to see how much there is checked. So thanks for sharing that. What I want to ask you is, you all are involved in the setup of a registry, either as an operator of an existing registry or responsible for existing issuing body, or a potential future issuing body, or consulting an issuing body. So please, for that registry you have responsibilities for, when do you expect, just a rough estimate, the first demand for geo conversion issuance in your domain, if you have any idea? It's of course pretty difficult to have an exact idea, it's just a rough estimate. And that will also give an indication on when system design should be providing something on a harmonized level. From Lena, I learned that there are already 3 power-to-gas devices present today, so it may be that that is not on the very long run, that they need more detail. I see that there are still so some people hesitant to join, either hesitant to join the polling tool, or struggling with the technology, or not having the time to do the polls in the meantime. But it's great to see that 32 people are engaged in the poll tool and 29 have responded. So I give it 5 more seconds and I close this poll. And I'm closing it now. So this is pretty impressive to see. The first demand for geo conversion issuance, more than 50% expects by the end of next year that that demand will have given a signal. That is urging us all to move on and not to wait too long with our communication internally. So this is really important to see. It's also impressive to see that already 20% expects a first demand this year. And then indeed later in 2026 is about 7%. And of course, a quarter of us is not very much able to estimate it today. There may be good reasons for that. But this is an interesting feedback. Thanks very much. That brings us with another case study, and I'm also really honored to be able to welcome Remco van Stijn-Kallenfels from CertiQ. He's also an expert on guarantees of origin since I think already 2006 or so, having huge experience in the Dutch electricity and heat guarantee of origin system. I allow you, Remco, to take over the screen, and I'll stop sharing so you can operate your own slides. So while we are waiting for Remco's technicalities on his audio, I think it is really good to use the time for exchanging some views in the meantime. On these 4 challenges that we've presented earlier, on the implementation of energy carrier conversion, what are your views? And we have a question on each of them. First one, would you appreciate if REGATRACE would propose criteria for a quality check of GEOs that are cancelled for conversion in your registry? Okay, I see the poll wasn't open. Now it is open. And you can start voting. So first answer would be yes, it could be a good inspiration for us. Basically meaning we will set anyway our own criteria. Second answer could be yes, we are seeking for harmonized recognition criteria and we would like to take over if possible, if we agree with them. No, could be a third answer, we will set our own criteria anyway and we don't need inspiration. 4, it depends, and it's welcome to let it depend on many aspects and always welcome to comment. 5 is I today don't have a clear opinion yet. Initiated already a very interesting discussion on this aspect, whether there should be whether we should continue with 2 separate schemes or whether there is a reason for integrating both, so that if your answer would lie in that direction, then at least I think option 2 would go more in that direction, but 2 could also be something completely else. So apologies for not including that option into the poll. I learned that we should do that in a detailed questionnaire later if we go there. I'll give it 5 more seconds and then we close the poll. So closing it now. And 80% welcomes REGATRACE to work on a set of criteria for a quality check of GEOs that are cancelled for conversion in a registry. 50% are looking for harmonized recognition criteria. And these 7% who says it depends, I'm actually really interested in some feedback and some views. And also in general, from all of you, I welcome any comment to your vote. So welcome to use a minute to comment. Welcome to take the floor. Anybody having a comment on this aspect now? Right now not. Okay, then let's just move to the next question. This is already very interesting feedback, and it gives us certainly an indication for continuing our work. So next question is on that geo quality check. What type of criteria would be relevant for a quality check of a cancelled geo for conversion issuance in your registry? And here you can only select one option, and I'll read them out. So criteria could be framed under only cancelled GEOs that are issued in my own country can be used for conversion issuance. A second could be only cancelled GEOs that are issued under the same scheme can be used for conversion issuance. A third one could be there have to be similar production verification mechanisms in place in the scheme of the cancelled GEO as for the issued GEOs in our registry. The fourth one could be there have to be similar liability mechanisms in place for account holders and registry operators in the scheme of the cancelled GOs as for the issued GOs in our registry. The fifth criterion could be there has to be similar issuance, transfer and cancellation protocols in place in the scheme of the cancelled GO as for the issued GOs in our registry. The sixth answer could be 3, 4, and 5. So there have to be similar production verification mechanisms, liability mechanisms, and issuing, transfer, and cancellation protocols in place. And 7 could be other. I see it takes a bit of time to form an opinion, which I can fully understand. And it is, of course, always difficult to categorize an opinion under one of these. There's probably a little bit of tweak with all of the answers, or a little bit of gray around the black and the white. Just give a main direction of the first thing that comes up in your head, and we'll elaborate it better in detail later onwards. Asks a good question. What is the scheme of the cancelled GO? So the country where the GO is issued, the scheme under which the GO is issued. So if in the Luxembourg you would issue import a Dutch gas GO, what criteria would you require from that Dutch gas GO to accept it in Luxembourg, for example? You see, it does reward to wait a little bit. Of course, we cannot wait the whole time. So I think I give it 5 more seconds. And if you haven't yet made up your mind, please do so in the 4 seconds that follow. 3, 2, 1. Let's close it. Let's take a look. That is also very interesting. 50% says that about at least there should be production verification, liability, and issue, transfer, and cancellation protocols similar, of which half says that only GOs that are issued under the same scheme can be used for conversion issuance. So I think...
You see my screen, excellent. Let's see if we can get this show on the road. There we go. As Katrien has already introduced, my name is Remco van Stijn-Kallenfels. I work with CertiQ, have been doing so since 2005, so quite a while. CertiQ is a 100% subsidiary of TenneT, the Dutch electricity TSO, and we are the Dutch issuing body and have been so for renewable electricity since 2001. For renewable heat since 2012, and actually last year a system for full disclosure of the source of electricity was introduced. So now the full disclosure statement of each supplier with regard to electricity has to be corroborated with GOs. A few numbers up front. So last year we issued about 28 terawatt hours of GOs for renewable electricity. 8 terawatt hours of GOs for renewable heat, and 73 terawatt hours of GOs for fossil and nuclear energy combined. CertiQ is a founder member of the Association of Issuing Bodies, and in that capacity we've been contributing through the National Standards Committee to the original draft of the standard, as well as the current redraft, if I may call it that. But please bear with me if I use any of the terminology wrong there. So a little bit of background with regard to the topic that I'll be discussing today. And some of this may be a bit of a rehash of what's already been discussed today. So indeed, RED 2 introduces GEOs for gas and for heat, which in our opinion introduces a need for GEOs to be able to be converted from one energy carrier to the other. And the text that we're drafting for the standard contains provisions for doing so. And now, following those provisions, we have developed a calculation model. And during development of that model, we identified some issues that I'll be highlighting today. Those issues, given the abstraction level of the text for the standard, is quite understandable, but some things you just have to find out from practice. So I'll come to those in a bit. This picture should by now seem pretty familiar. This has been discussed at length today. So you might have a couple of production devices producing electricity and perhaps a production device using electricity to produce hydrogen. Now, obviously, we can issue GEOs for these production devices that produce electricity, and the idea of the principles in the standard is that you cancel a GEO so that you know what it is that goes in and effectively can make a claim on what goes out, and so you can actually issue a GEO there. And this principle, the concept of issuing GEOs and then cancelling them for conversion, is what the Dutch GEO scheme will be based on, whereas our registry will be, as it were, connected with that of Vertelgas, the Dutch issuing body for GEOs for renewable gas. So we will be collectively using this principle. Now, what we found relates to support information being carried forward, and Katrien also already hinted nicely to that in her opening presentation. So I've put those two GEOs next to each other on the slide for you here, with one being issued originally for the wind turbine and one for the electrolyzer. Now, we've already discussed today that obviously for that wind turbine, the energy source on the GEO will be wind. Logically speaking, once you cancel that GEO for the energy intake by the electrolyzer, the energy source on the resulting GEO will also be wind. Now, when it comes to the support information, there is a quirk, as it were, in the system. So let's say the wind turbine receives investment support and the electrolyzer receives production support. Indeed, we at least include that information on each relevant GEO, but the quirk here that follows from the text of the standard is that indeed then the resulting GEO for hydrogen should also mention that in the chain of production, investment support was received, so both have to be reflected there. Now, when we take that principle to a chain of conversion, so a chain of converting production devices, and mind you, I'll be showing that in a bit. Keep in mind that this particular chain might not today be an existing chain, but it is quite easy to imagine that this might occur when hydrogen starts to take a bigger part in the energy systems. So you might have production device A producing energy and then another production device B converting energy, and so on. And they might each have their own support or not. So here, production device A receives investment support, production device B production support, and the latter two no support at all. Now, how would that work for issuing GEOs? Well, assuming that we're still talking about the wind turbine here, there's nothing strange. We have a GEO. It says it's produced from wind and it receives investment support. When that's converted by an electrolyzer, we still see wind, but here the production support gets added to the the investment support gets added to the production support that production device B receives. And that information is carried forward along the chain, even though, and especially regardless of how many production devices don't even receive support in the chain, it will always receive this information. Now, for the wind tag to be carried forward to each link in the chain, that makes sense to me. But here we see, in my opinion, a disconnect. Now, when we look at the rules in the Renewable Energy Directive, it says specifically that a GO shall specify whether the installation has benefited from investment support or whether the unit of energy has benefited from a national support scheme. So they each relate specifically to that production device, to that energy that it produces, which means that, in our opinion, carrying forward information on support is in fact contradictory to the directive. Now, one might wonder then why carry forward that information at all? Well, presumably that was conceived to help consumers identify that hopefully their choice to purchase a renewable energy product without the help of any support would lead to additional production capacity being installed. Now, there's some impracticalities resulting from that. Again, if we follow what's in the current text for the standard, there are 5 codes with which to determine what to include on a GO when it comes to support information. Now, what the methodology of the standard proposes is that, and I have a few examples for you here, and I'll not go all of them for purposes of time, but let's go for example, with the middle one. If the cancelled GO lists that it is unknown whether support is being received, and the production device itself actually receives production support, then the resulting GO would include production support. Now, you have to basically look at all the combinations. These are all the possible combinations that can occur. And as you can see by this color coding, the same result can come from different original combinations. So in fact, the same outcome can mean different things. Now, the second thing here is that carrying forward residual kilowatt hours becomes complex, and I'll briefly, in a short moment, I'll explain what that means. And I'll do so by referring to each of these 3 installations that we've introduced before. So let's assume a very, very small wind turbine. If its production looks like this, then after the first 3 months of production, the threshold of 1 megawatt hour has been reached to be able to issue a GO. Now, in that case, 125 kilowatt hours would be carried forward. That's what we do, and that's in fact what quite a few issuing bodies in Europe do. And so the second example here is that effectively it's the same principle, except the thing here is that you have to carry forward those remaining kilowatt hours for each energy source. So you have to keep track of a lot of things, and it becomes even worse when you get to the carrying forward of support information, because you'll have to keep track of each combination of energy source and support indicator to keep carrying forward those kilowatt hours. Now, the more combinations that you have, the more energy is waiting to be issued GOs, which causes a bigger difference between production of energy and the actual GOs issued for that, which in our opinion is difficult to explain to producers. So our proposal to solve this is basically to go back to what the directive actually indicates. So to include on each GO only information with regard to investment support and or production support granted to that production device specifically, and the energy that it produces. And the idea behind that is
that when a geo is cancelled to determine the source of an energy flow, the attributes of that geo are consumed, and also we don't want to misrepresent the support that is actually being granted by replicating the information on too many geos in a row in a time. That's it. Sorry for taking a bit more time. I tried to keep it short, but there you go.
I think you make a very comprehensive way of illustrating a very complex story, but indeed you have to convey all the information of the geos and the history of several data fields, and you have to deal with residues after the megawatt hour and put them on the subsequent geos after conversion. You've illustrated very well how this becomes very much a challenge. So actually that brings us with the evaluation of the existing rule for conversion, and more specifically with an evaluation of the existing rule for what's it called? Conveying the information of the cancelled geos to the newly issued geos. So I'll share with you a next poll question, and I would very much hope you to all still have open your polling tool. So from, of course, there are always two aspects, and Stefan has also already illustrated that there's, of course, the policy relevant aspect. The drive of the policy has a mission to complete. But apart from that, as Remco illustrated, there's a lot of practicalities to make things happen. And here on this specific question, it's what information on the new to be issued geos you think is essential to be retained from the original geos after conversion. So the cancelled geos, what data do you have to take from that to put on the newly issued geos? And you can select multiple answers. First of all, the energy source, retain that after conversion. Secondly, the support information, there has been granted investment support, there has been granted production support, those are none. Or don't know, that are currently the 5 possible values, and those are currently to be accumulated after conversion. Label, the carbon footprinting information, and those are the 4 that are already in the rules, are in the draft rules and SEN standard. The second question goes beyond those. That says all information of the original geo should be accessible from the newly issued geos, making abstraction of the complexity that there are different quantities of input and output geos. And 6 other. So I'd like you to give some feedback through a view in this poll. And I'll give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's look at the results. So the big majority says the energy source should be retained. And for the other data, there are different views. Support information. So it does seem that Remco convinced 62% of the audience that we don't need to convey that. The label to convey that information. The carbon footprint information, there's a significant share of people who think that should be carried onward. But there's also about almost 40% of the people who says that there should all information of the original geo be accessible. So thanks for this feedback. We'll give it some further thought. And we may also discuss this further, possibly in relation with the discussions in SEN. Thanks a lot, Remco. So now we actually had foreseen a poll and a Q&A session and a brainstorm. I propose that we just take a few more of our poll questions. Looking at the time, I'm not sure whether we can handle them all, but I would like to take at least 2 more of them. And immediately after the poll, discuss also. So let's take these 2 slots together. A little bit your views on challenges and solutions, the status in your countries, and let's see what we can, how we can make the best out of our time. So we already had these 2 polls. We saved some time on that aspect. Next question is the cancellation process. So this was process 2, if you remember well. Which pathway for cancellation of GOs for conversion originating from another registry do you see optimal on the midterm? So which GOs would you, would you prefer to import the data in your registry when you issue new GOs, and then just to see, or how would you relate with cancelled GOs that are issued for, that are cancelled for something that you have to issue GOs for? So the first option is an ex-domain cancellation statement on a PDF, which is manual handling. The second option is the electronic cancellation statement requiring a new data transfer protocol for informing other parties with it, and requiring the interfacing system to translate the information into your own registry. Thirdly, import GOs of the other energy carrier in your registry and cancel them in your own registry. If you are a single energy carrier issuing body, it requires the implementation of the data fields to import these GOs. Fourthly, export the GOs to a cancellation registry, a central registry, and that informs your own registry on the quantity and attributes of the cancelled GOs. So it also requires an interfacing tool. 5 is no clear opinion yet. 19 people have made up their minds so far. Several more are doing so. Of course, you will never have to, you will not be liable for anything you answer to this poll. This is just an indicative direction to see whether there's appetite for any of those directions to further elaborate. I'll give it 5 more seconds and then I'll close the poll. And then always 1 more comes. Thanks for your voting. There is appetite for an electronic cancellation statement and a new transfer protocol. That's the majority of the views. There is appetite for import GOs and cancel them in your own registries. And there is also some appetite for a central cancellation registry. Nice is that there is clarity on the first one. There is no supporters today for the PDF handling of cancellations. Thank you for your views. Can we do? Is it, well, I'm not sure whether there's anybody having a comment on the previous poll. Otherwise, we do just 1 more, and then we open a bit more discussion. So the next poll is about consumption matching. What do you deem feasible in the processes in your registry for checking quantity and attributes of the cancelled GOs with the measured inputs of the conversion device? So we had the options ex ante and ex post. So first option is there must be proof of the cancelled GOs before the new GOs are issued in. And then the second option is a producer, it's ex post, a producer can provide information on the cancelled GOs, and he will be audited afterwards, once per year, regarding the information on the cancelled GOs of last year. And 3 could be other, or I don't know yet. Okay, I give it 5 more seconds. A huge majority is in favor of the first option, the ex-ante proof of cancelled GEOs before new GEOs are issued in the registry. Thanks a lot for that. Let's read what we have. Harmonized rules, harmonization, no competition, harmonization, cooperation, urgency, secure, one hub, understanding. I think understanding is a fantastic thing that we are that we have to work on and that we are gradually succeeding in. I think definitely this is a very important aspect as well. Develop rules, single, one system, easy, inspiration, share practices. Thank you very much. I think we can, and I think I speak also on behalf of Ercardena AGCS, European Biodata Association, that we will work on these aspects in task 4.3 of the REGATRACE project. I think I have one more room for one more poll question, and it is, what did you learn most about today? So with that, I will already close the poll in the meantime and try to get a view myself of what you have learned today. Approach, not there yet. Yes, that's absolutely true. We have an ambition. That's true. Soon, conversion comes soon. Could be could be a reading. There's work to do. Yes, registries, issuing bodies, people advising registry operators. We have work to do, and we have to work on it. Experiences, task 4.3, disclosure, one system, difference, sustainability. So I conclude with a big thank you for, first of all, sharing your thoughts, for being active through the polls, through the chat, through voicing orally. I want to thank you all also very, very much for being active. I want to thank the presenters very much. The indicative polls today, they give us in the project team a bit direction how to navigate a bit further, but we'll try to refine that with development of a questionnaire that we will send to you in the weeks to come, and we hope that you contribute, because it will help us shape a potential framework. But REGATRACE will only be providing advisory information, but of course we hope to do something that is actually useful, and not just throw away the subsidized project, because we want to make it really a hands-on tool. Thanks a lot for that. You can expect then in October and in April some final outcome of this. With that, I want to keep on saying, let's together lay solid foundations for the future of energy certification. And thank you very, very much for your attendance.